Okay, yesterday we saw the following case. We saw that there were five brothers. There were and three Yevamot married to two of the brothers. Consequently, those two brothers die, and now you have three Yevamot falling to two brothers. You have three Yevamot falling to two brothers. So the din that Rab said was, one gives chalitza to one gives chalitza to the other, and they both give chalitza to the middle one. The feeling being that of yesh zika, there's a zika. They can't marry the first one because it's achas chalutza so. The first one is achas kuka so. They can't marry the second one because it's achas kuka so. And now, since they both had given previously chalitza, their zika is, their power to remove has been compromised. So in order to go ahead and totally remove the third Yevama, each one has to give what? Chalitza to that Yevama. That was the case according to Rav. If you hold Ein Zika, the Gemara, yes, Rav holds Ein Zika, Yesh Zika. According to Rav, Ein Zika says, well, them's the apples. Okay, now we're going to have another opinion how to learn Pshat in that case. Another opinion how to learn Pshat in the case, and that's the case of Shmuel. So we pick it up on Chaf Vav Amid Beis. Chaf Vav Amid Beis. Shmuel Amar, 3 lines from the bottom. Shmuel Amar, Shmuel's of the opinion that what Echad Choylates the Kulan. One of the brothers gives chalitza to all. One of the brothers. So therefore, again, you have three Yevamot falling, two brothers. You don't have one in one middle, but one does the job in all of them. Okay, now let's go ahead and analyze that case. One's doing the job of all of them. Shmuel the Amar Chalitz, right? Michti. 1 second. Shamina le Shmuel. We hold Shmuel's of the opinion. The Amar Chalitza ma'al Yabinyan. You need a good chalitza. You need a good chalitza. Okay, before we see Shmuel, guys, let's go outside. Let's prepare the problem over here. So you have two brothers, Reuben and Shimon, and you have three women. Shmuel says Reuven does chalitza to one woman, 1, 2, and 3. Now let's analyze. As soon as Reuven gives chalitza to the first one, right? As soon as he gives chalitza to the first one, that makes the second two achos chalutza so, correct? The sisters of one he's given chalitza to. Shimon, conversely, did not give chalitza to the first one yet. Shimon is still a viable, powerful zika remover. So the kasha is going to be, if I have my druthers to have a brother who can only give a chalitza psula, a chalitza gerua, versus one that can give a good chalitza, why in the world would I choose the one who can give the poorer chalitza? In this case, Reuven had previously given chalitza to one, rather than Shimon, who's available to give a more powerful chalitza. Now, the only thing you'd have to go ahead and prove is that Shmuel is of the opinion that there's difference in the quality of chalitza. That, in other words, there's a poorer chalitza and a better chalitza, which we're about to prove now. It says the Orma chalitza ma'al yabin, and Shmuel's of the opinion you need the best chalitza possible. The Orma Shmuel, the following case: you have two brothers. Yeah, let's get a picture over here. $163. Page 163. Okay, here you have three brothers, and you have two sisters, and the brothers with the two sisters have tsaras. So Shimon has a tsara and is married to Rachel. Reuven has a tsara, he's married to Leah. So there are four women that are going to fall to Yibam upon the death of Reuven and Shimon, Leah and Rachel, and their two tsaras. Good, classic case, regular case. Now, consequently, as you could expect, Reuven and Shimon die, and falling in front of the remaining brother Levi are four women. Falling in front of the Levi, page 139.2, the people with the dots in them, we have falling in front of Levi, four women, Rachel with Hatzara and Leah with Hatzara. So now, if Reuven goes ahead and gives a chalitza to Leah, thus you'd say ostensibly feeling the tzara, or then he gives the chalitza to Rachel, the tsaros are not pata. Why? Because these two women are achos kukaso. Falling to Levi are two women or two sisters. Now, guys, look at my fingers. Let's do it this way. Here are the two Ervis, the two sisters. Here are the two tsaris. Here are the two tsaris. These chalitza is a more shvacha chalitza than these. Why? Because these two are sisters. So if I have my druthers over here giving a poorer chalitza or a better chalitza, watch. If I give chalitza to this one also requires chalitza. If I give chalitza to this one also requires chalitza. Why? Because it's a shvacha chalitza. Conversely, if I give chalitza to this one and to this one, to the two tsaris, these will be potter. So what do we prove from this case? That Shmuel, given our druthers between a good chalitza and a poorer chalitza, we're going to go with the more what? Powerful chalitza. So what are you telling me over here? Back to our case, where you have three sisters falling to two brothers. Says Shmuel, one brother does all three. 1 second. As soon as that one brother does this one, the other two are achos chalutza so. So why not let him do one? Let this one now do one because he's not achos chalutza so. And we've proven that Shmuel believes in not giving a shvacha or weaker chalitza from the case that we just proved between the two women and the two tsaris. So again, under discussion, guys, for all intents and purposes, are two cases. One, our case of three sisters falling to two brothers, and two, a case of two sisters falling to two brothers to one brother with two tsaris. We've proven in the case of the sister, again, the sister, two sisters with two tsaris to one brother, that it's more preferable to do the tsaris because, again, these are achos kukaso, thus proving that a shvacha chalitza doesn't work because it doesn't free up the tsara. So who are in over here, where you have 5 and 3, the 3 die, and now you have 2. Why can this person give one? This is a shvacha chalitza. As soon as you do the first one, the next one's achas chalitza. So that's the kasha. That's the kasha. So fed the Gemara. Let's see it inside. The Amar chalitza milat min. The Amar Shmuel top line. Chaletz lachayos. In the case where you have 2 brothers, right, who die, and when they have 2 wives with 2 tsaris, and 2 of the wives are sisters, and they're falling in front of one individual, the 2 tsaris do not get off the hook. Right? They don't get off the hook when you do chalitza what to the sisters. Now, chalitza the shimon chalitza kashera. Going back to our case, guys. Going back to our case, we are falling in front of 2 brothers or 3 sisters, and you're telling me Reuven does all of them. Heichi the kaime chalitza the shimon chalitza kashera, because it's not achas kulatza soya, because he didn't do anything. Chalitz la Reuven chalitza psula. Will you let Reuven, who did chalitza already, perform chalitza a second time? You're letting him. He did chalitza once. You're going to say do chalitza a second time. How could you go ahead and say that? So Gemara answers you right. My echad chalitz the kulon. When Shimon said echad chalitz the kulon, nami de ka'amar am tziyas. It's going on the last one. It's going on the last one. So in other words, let's set it up. Rav said the following, guys. Again, we have what? We have 3 sisters. Chalitza to this one, chalitza to this one, and they both give chalitza to this one. Good? That was Rav. Shmuel is, no. One gives chalitza to this one gives chalitza to that one, because again, now you both have a powerful chalitza, because it's not achos chalitza so. And then one gives chalitza to the last. That's how he argues on Rav. Okay. On the last one, you don't need 2. On the last one, you only need 1. And that's how he argues. But again, we've removed the kasha of a shvacha chalitza, because there's no shvacha chalitza over here. Okay? Says the Gemara. So now, one more time. My echad chalitz the kula, when it says one gives chalitza to all of them, that Shmuel said, that we began to share with, the ka'amar, so it's going on the last one. Fred the Gemara about kulon ka'amar. It says echad chalitz the kulon mashma, not just to the last one. Mashma, 1 is given to all 3. The way you're interpreting now, it's only going on 1. It's not going on all 3. It's only going on 1. Says the Gemara, Kivin the Ruba Gabe, since whichever brother, Reuven or Shimon, are doing the majority of the chalitza, because he did 1, and now he's doing a second one, right? Karile Kulon. You're calling them all of them. You're calling them all of them. So let's go back to the beginning of the share, guys. Amid Beis. Shmuel Amar, Shmuel says in the case of the three sisters falling in front of the two Yevamim, Echad Cholitz the Kulon. The way we initially thought it meant was one does all three. It does not mean that. It means one does the last one. One does the last one. One is doing one is doing the other, and one of the previous ones is doing the last one. And when it says Kulon, it means Ruban, majority. That's what it means. Good? And that's how he argues on Rav, because Rav requires two to do the last one, and he only requires one. The Yibai is same, a second teretz. When the Shmuel require a chitza ma'alya, for example, where you had the two sisters with the two tsaris, we said do the tsaris rather than the sisters, is hani milu mifta tsarasa. That's to let the tsaru off the hook. Aval mifta and nafsha, but to let the sister herself off the hook, potra should be potter even with a shvacha chalitza. Again, why was that question? We're sushtelling the case of the three sisters, two brothers, to the case of 2 and 2. The case of 2 and 2, where you had druthers of a chalitza psula, because this is a kuka for itzara, then it doesn't pater itzara. But in a case for the erva itself, the achas sukukasai itself, then a shvacha chalitza also would work. So Reuven can do 1, 2, and 3, and it removes the kasha of a kulon. So you have two roots on how to go and learn pshat over here. Either one is doing one is doing the other, and one is doing the middle. And because why? Because the shvacha chalitza doesn't work. Well, no, the shvacha chalitza does work. Shmuel says by the case of 2 brothers, 2 sisters, 2 tsaras, one brother, 2 sisters, 2 tsaras, a shvacha chalitza doesn't work. That's the pater tzara, a shvacha chalitza doesn't work. But to go ahead and pater herself, the sister itself, a shvacha, an inferior chalitza, would work. So again, Machlokes Rav and Shmuel, the case of what? 3 sisters, says Rav 1, 1, middle 2, says Shmuel 1, 1, and middle 1. That's the Machlokes. Now, Gufa, we're going to go back and analyze Shmuel for itself. Again, we brought in this case of the one brother with the two sisters with the 2 tsaris. We brought it in for a question on Shmuel. Now we're going to analyze it for itself, that case exactly. How did Shmuel arrive at this din? Very fascinating case. Okay, let's see what we got over here. Kufa. Oma Shmuel. Chalitz la'achayos. If you gave chalitza to the sisters, and there's 2 tsaros, lo niftaru tsaros. Why? Because the 2 sisters that you gave chalitza to, achas sukukaso, and therefore it was a shvacha, an inferior chalitza. Therefore, it doesn't pater the tzara. However, the tsaros, if you give the tsaros, the 2 external wives, if you give them chalitza, niftaru achayos, it would pater the ach, because that's a full-fledged chalitza. The sisters, the pasha of the sisters. Now, you have a case of Maimer. Let's see, you have a case of Maimer. That's at page 164. Let's see 164, 165. Have you book? Okay. You have 2 brothers married to 2 sisters, right? You have, in this case, Yisachar is married to 1 woman, Yehuda is married to another woman, and Reuven is married to the 3rd woman. Okay, no, Reuven's not. Levi is married to the 3rd woman. So you have 3 brothers married to 3 sisters. You have 5 brothers, and 3 of them are married to sisters. Now comes along Reuven, comes along Levi dies. So the only one who can do Yibum to that one, the only one who could do Yibum to that, we want to take a picture maybe? That's what we're going to do. Okay. Just 1 second. Okay, so we're on 164, right? So the only one who could do chalitza yibum is Reuven, because Levi was married to a sister, Yisachar was married to a sister, and Yehuda was married to a sister. Now, in fact, Shimon is also available. There are 2 brothers available, Shimon and Reuven. Reuven goes ahead and gives chalitza to that woman. Okay, now comes along one of the brothers. Yehuda dies. One of the brothers dies, and falling in front of him is is a woman, and Shimon goes ahead and gives chalitza to that woman, and the third one falls, and he gives chalitza. Okay, so now that's not the case. I'm sorry. I'm giving you this. I'm sorry. Page, we did that already. Page 166. 166. I'm sorry. I gave you the whole wrong case. Regular case of Yibum. Regular case of Yibum, brother dies, he has two wives, and his brother goes ahead and gives Maimer, gives Kedushin. Again, Maimer is the Kedushin you do before Yibum. Yibum is only Alspia through marital relations, but over here you're going ahead and you're giving what? Page 166, you're going ahead and giving Maimer. Good? Okay, so now, after you give the Maimer, then you go ahead, you give Chalitza. So the tzara won't be pated. Why? Because you're still connected to this woman. What your Maimer created was the need for a get. Usually, if you don't do anything, it's Chalisa or Yibum that lets her off the hook. But you created an additional connection over here. By giving her Kesef Kedushin, Maimer, even if you give a Chalitza, it's not going to fear because you have to get rid of the Maimer with a get. So, therefore, what do? If you go ahead and give Chalitza to the Maimer, it's not going to take care of the tzara. Conversely, if you give it to the tzara, it's going to pater the balas maimer because the tzara you did nothing to, and you wouldn't need a chalitza, but you would need a get. You wouldn't need chalitza, but you would need a get. So if you give chalitza to the balas maimer, like nifter it tzara, but conversely, if you give it to the tzara, it would pater. Okay, let's see the Gemara now. Gufa, we said previously, Amashmuel. If you go ahead, if you give chalitza to the two sisters, it doesn't take off the tzara. If you give chalitza to the tzara, it would take off the tzika for the two sisters. Chalas labalas haget. Again, you gave a get to one, like nifter tzara. L'tzara nifter balas haget. Chalas labalas hamaimer. Like nifter tzara. L'tzara nifter balas hamaimer. Why? When you give to the tzara, the zika is so powerful, and you didn't weaken it by doing anything. By the balas maimer, if you give her chalitza, since you need to get, it wouldn't pater. Now, why, when you did chalitza to the sisters, didn't you let the tzaras go off the hook? The habiloi achas ish b'sika, the achas kukaso. In other words, those two sisters, again, it's only one person, guys. This Levi is the only brother. Reuben and Shimon died. They were married to two sisters. They had two wives. Falling in front of Levi now are four women. If you give to the achayos who are achasu kukoso, it's not going to pater the two tsaras. That's what we said, right? So in Freg de Marakasha, choletz tsaras nami like lift through achayos. Dav like tsaras achas isha bezika. Guys, so let's do the hands. Guys, let's do the hands again. These are achasu kukoso, correct? So if you do chalitza this, it's not going to pater this. Now, 1 second. These are the tsaras of these. These are sisters. So if we're going to view achas kukoso like achas ishto, if we're going to view these as erves, then these sisters are what? And these tsaras are tsaras of achas kukoso. So therefore, if they're tsaras, then the zika should not pater them. You should need chalitza on both this and this. You're telling me that chalitza for these two would let these two off the hook. These two are also problematic. Why? Because they're ervis to this. So since they're ervis to this, you should have to go ahead and it weakens your koyach. So then you'd have to give chalitza to them and chalitza to them. That's the kasha on Shmuel Shita. Try the Gemara Nachum. Let's see the kasha again. Says the Gemara. What's the reason that the two sisters, if Levi goes ahead and give chalitza to that two sisters, the tsaros will require chalitza. The habilei achas eshes zika, because the achas ishtoi, right? They fell b'vasachas, guys. They fell b'vasachas, so it's not one if they fell at the same time. So achas kukasoi. So chalitz l'tsaros nami. When you give chalitza to the tsaros, nami loy liftu achaya, should not let the sisters off the hook. Why? The habilei tsaros achas isha bezika, because they're tsaros of sisters in Zika. Achas ishta Zika means achas kukasoi. So they are, in other words, they're not just squeaky clean women. They also have a creation of a Zika. In other words, these girls carry with them the same problem of these two. Since these two, you can't go ahead. It's achas kukaso. These two are ervas achas kukaso. So how can this part of this? That's the Gemara's kasha. How can that part of this? Okay, and for the Gemara, okay, now let's figure it out. Now let's call the first sister Leah and the second sister Rachel, because the Gemara does. Good? The first sister is Leah and the second sister is Rachel. So now, Bishlema, Sarah de Rachel, the Tzara of Rachel, the second Tzara, Leinifter, why not? The Kivin, the Chalatz Lala Leah, since he went ahead, Levi, and he gave Chalitza to Leah, good. For her, the Chalitz to Rachel, and then gave Chalitza to Rachel, which he had to do. Havile Chalitza de Rachel, Chalitza Besula. The Chalitza de Rachel is the Chalitza of what? Of Achas Chalutza. So, guys, as soon as he gave the first sister Chalitza, the second Chalitza is a Shvacha Chalitza. It's a Chalitza Besula, because Rachel is the Achos Chalutza of Leah, because Levi had given Chalitza to what? To Leah. So now Rachel is Achos Chalutza. So, Memela, we can understand why Leah can't pata who? Can't pata the Hatzara. Why Rachel can't pata Hatzara. El Tzara de Leah Tifter. The Tzara of Leah should be pata. Why? Guys, we're going according to the opinion of Ein Zika, right? If there's no Zika, then, actually, we're not yet, right? We're going to the opinion of Ein Zika. So now, he could have married Rachel, the first one. When Rachel fell, he could have married Rachel. He decided to give a chalitza, but he could have married her. Now, since he could have married her, that would let his sorrow off the hook. But he didn't marry her. He gave chalitza to her. Now that creates what? So we have a kasha. Why did you just tell me that the chalitza of both Rachel and Leah do not let the tzaras off the hook? Apparently, it doesn't make any sense, because the first tzara should be off the hook. The first tzara should be off the hook, since he could have been miyabim Leah. So it's a full-fledged. The chalitza is a full-fledged chalitza, and he could have married her. So go ahead, and she should be pata. So why did Shmuel say, if you give chalitza to both sisters, both tzaras require chalitza? I only understand why the second tzara does not require chalitza, since the chalitza of her wife was achos chalutza, so Rachel. Masha'en came Leah, which was not achas chalutza, so which you could have done yibum to, should pata the tzara of Leah. That's why I read the Gemara. Now, and for the Gemara, my loy niftaru tzaris, you know what it means, like niftaru tzaris? Nami de kamar at tzara de Rachel. It's only going on one. Einachinami, Leah's tzara would be off the hook, and the tzara of Rachel would not be off the hook. Fred the Gemara, how could you say that for tzaris ka'amar? You said the lashon of Rabbim, mashma both the tzara of Leah and Rachel. Says the Gemara, ihachi cholas the tzaris niftu achoyos, but tzaris ka'amar. And for the Gemara, it's tzaris to alma. It's tzaris to alma. No, it's in this scenario where you would have that, like this, where you'd have an achos chalutza, so it wouldn't pater. In this case, similar tzaris to alma, meaning where the chalitza wasn't a powerful chalitza, then the tzara would not be off the hook. So we're not speaking specifically in the case of Leah receiving chalitza. We're speaking in the second part of this transaction, the chalitza of Rachel. In that same scenario, then if you give chalitza to the erva Rachel, you would not pata the tzara, because the erva was achas chalutza. So Ihachi Fred the Gemara, that the tzara that Shmuel is speaking about is only the tzara of Rachel that you last. Cholitz the tzara is niftu achayos, right? The tzaris of the cholitz the niftu achayos. Ihachi cholitz the tzara is niftu achayos. If you give chalitza to the tzaris, would pata the achayos? You're telling me if you get chalitza, it would pata? But Tzara Rachel mi miftara. With the chalitza done to Tzara of Rachel, pata. You want to say the following. You want to say, if you do chalitza to the tzaris, you're letting the achayos off the hook. It wouldn't work. Why? What did you do? You gave chalitza to Leah. That makes Rachel now achas chalutza so. That means Rachel's tzara is the tzara of achas chalutza so. So how could you tell me if you're going to go ahead and it's tzaras Rachel miftara, if you go ahead and give chalitza to Rachel's tzara, it's going to pata Rachel. But Tanan in the Mishnah, asa adam b'tzaras kroivasoi chalutza so. Let's guys see page 167. Did I do a few, Shimon?
Yeah.
Page 167. The title is Asa Adam B'Tzoras Kroivas Chalutza So. An Adam is Asa with the tzara of his relative of his chalutza. What does that mean? Reuven, Shimon, Levi, and Rachel. Okay, Shimon's married to Levi. And Shimon's married to Leah, and Rachel has a non-brother. Rachel has Elkanah, a husband Elkanah, and it has a child, and its co-wife Chana. Now comes along Shimon dies. Reuven gives chalitza to Leah. And then Reuven is not able to marry Chana. Why? Because Chana is the tzara of achos chalutza so. Rachel is the sister of Leah. So let's go through it. Leah is the chalutza. Rachel is the korev of the chalutza. Chana is the tzara of the kroiva of the chalutza. So memela by us, guys, let's go through it again. By us. He gave chalitza to who? To Leah. Rachel is what? Is the korev of Leah. Rachel's tzara is what? Is the korev of is the tzara of achas chalutza so. So how in the world can the chalitza that you do to the tzara of Rachel pata Rachel? After all, she's the tzara of kroivas chalutza so. You got that, guys? A lot of fancy words, but I think if you always follow along this last line, you get it. You know, the last line, you always have to fit in the thing to the last line. The process sometimes is more complicated. So now, Freddy Morakasha. So it says in Vayihachi, Chalas the tzaras niftu achoyos. That's right. If you give chalitza to the tzaros, you're going to pata the sister. Meaning, if you give chalitza to the tzara of Rachel, you're going to pata Rachel. But tzaras Rachel mi miftara. Giving chalitza to the tzara of Rachel, would that pata Rachel? But Tanan, asa adam b'tzaras kroivasai chalutza so. A person is asa to the tzara of the relatives of his chalutza. So guys, let's go through it. He gave chalitza to Leah. Rachel is the karev of Leah. Rachel's tzara is the tzara of kroiva to Leah. So therefore, you shouldn't be able to go ahead and give chalitza to pata. It's asa. It says the Gemara, Shmuel nami hischel v'loy hischel kamal. Shmuel gives this whole convoluted pshat. Shmuel says what? Hischel v'loy hischel kamal. He says began and he didn't begin. What does that mean? Hischel b'achayos, guys. If he first gave chalitza to Leah and then then lo yigma b'tzaris. There's no way you can complete the transaction with the tzaris. Guys, what would happen? If you began, page 139, page 163, 163. if you began with the achayos, 199.3, first you gave chalitza to Leah. First you gave chalitza to Leah, and then you gave chalitza to Rachel. It's not going to let off the hook. It's not going to let off the tsaris off the hook. You can't. But what about page 168? Page 168. Picture one, right? Picture 144. So again, Reuven was married to Leah, Shimon was married to Rachel, and they both had tsaris. So let's say they fall in front of Levi. If Levi begins with the tzara, guys, so watch. As soon as Levi gives tsaras Leah, Leah's off the hook. Then he'll be able to complete it by giving what? By giving the sister, because he would go ahead and give Rachel, that would pata the tzara of Rachel. You wouldn't have to give two. So if you begin, guys, watch outside. If you're going to begin with the sisters, then you won't be able to finish with the tsaris. Then you're going to have to give to each one. But if you begin with the tsaris, right? I give tsaris this one, right? Then this tzara lets this one off the hook. Then as soon as I do chalitza over here, this one's off the hook. As soon as I give chalitza over here, this one's off the hook. Okay? Now that's what would happen. Says the Gemara. Shmuel nami hiskel by hiskel kamar. Hiskel b'achayos. If you began giving chalitza to the two sisters, lo yigman b'tzaris. You're gonna have to give chalitza to the tzaris. Did nan asa adam b'tzaris krayvas chalitza so. And the tzara of Rachel is the tzara of the karev of the one that you gave chalitza to Leah. Hiskel b'tzaris. But if you began with Leah, yigmar af b'achayos. Rachel. Then, guys, if you give with Leah, that would pata what? That would pata tzara, and yigmar, you'll be able to go ahead and complete af b'achayos. Rachel would be pata. Rachel would pata tzara. So if you give it Leah wouldn't pata tzara, but Rachel would pata tzara. Nan, but the Adam the kroivas tzaras chalutza so. Another is permitted with the karev of a tzara. Let's see, page 169. Page 169. You still have it? 169. Muta, you don't have that one? Muta Adam the kroivas tzaras chalutza so. So again, Reuven, Shimon, Levi. Shimon gets married. He gets married Leah. It's Chana. Shimon goes ahead and dies, and he has two women, Chana and Leah. If Reuven goes ahead and begins with the sister Chana, Reuven would mutter to marry Leah. Reuven would be mutter to marry Leah because she's the right. Why? She's the karev of Saras Chalutza So. The bottom line, right? That you have Rachel and Leah. Reuven, he went ahead and he gave chalitza to Chana. He gave chalitza to Chana. Rachel is the karev to Leah. In other words, Leah is the chalutz, is achas chulutza so, but Rachel's not is just the karev. She's not the Sarah. Rachel and Leah are not Sarahs, they're just sisters. So even though Reuven to Leah she is achos chalutza, she parted her really, right? Reuven chalutz l'chana. When Reuven gave Chana, that would get Leah off the hook, right? Chana and Leah tzaris. Chana and Leah tzaris, guys. 145.5. Reuven gives to Chana, that lets Leah off the hook. So she's tzaris chalutza so. The relative of tzaras chalutza so is permitted. The tsar of the chalutza is not. The relative of the tzaras chalutza is. So therefore, in our scenario, if he would give to Leah, he would be able to go ahead and then the tzara, he would be able to go ahead and 169. He'd be able to go ahead and marry. He'd be able to go ahead and pata the tzara of Rachel will be part of the Sarah, since he began with the tzara of Leah. He can complete it with Chana by giving to by Rachel, going ahead and giving chalutza to Rachel that would pata the tzara. That nan mut adam v'kroy. So a person's permitted. The karev of Leah would be the tzara of his chalutza. The chalutza being mat the tzara. So therefore, the tzara is the chalutza. The karev is Rachel, who is the karev of Leah. It's the karev of Leah that would permit Rachel to mata. Okay. Ravashi says the oilam kidduka armit. Like we said initially, no convoluted places. Plain pashut geret, guys. Plain pashut geret, guys. If you give chalitza to these, it doesn't pata these. If you give chalitza to these, it patas these. What created the question that these two were the erev of these two? These two were the erev of these two? No. Says the Gemara, it's not a kasha. The zika, guys, the zika between these two sisters is not strong enough to make this an erva. Since it's not an erva, they can pata them, but they can't pata them. That's it. Nerds, plain pashut correct. That your kasha doesn't begin. Your whole kasha is predicated upon that the two tsaris are ervis because of the zika of the two sisters. It's not true. The zikas of the two sisters is not strong enough to create them as the what the tsaris of Aneshas Ach. Go ahead and make them what achas like achas ishta. We don't view them that way. Tanya Kavasi, the Vashi guys, we have a brisa that substantiates with Vashi. If you give chalitza to Rachel and Leah, the two tsaris are not off the hook. Halit tsaris, mashma. If you give to the two tsaris, niftru achayos. My timer, lav mishum de kasava yezika, and therefore, if you give chalitza to the sisters, it doesn't let them off the hook. However, but it's not enough. It's not strong enough to make the relationship between the two tsaras and the two sisters into a tsaras erva. Says the Gemara, Ta'asad. Homani, who said, no, you have no raya. Homani, Beishamai, he did nan. Beishamai, Yomim, Matirin, at tsaras la'achin. Again, Daf Yomi, famous shita of Beishamai, guys. What was the shita of Beishamai? Let's go back in time. We said this is probably the biggest machloikas in Nafkamina and halachas and Shas between Beis Shammai and Beis Hillel. Beis Hillel says if you go ahead and the erva, since you can't do yibum or chalitza to the erva, you can't do it. It's off the hook. The erva is off the hook, and she's asa temas eishes ach. Says Beis Shammai, it's a mitzvah to go ahead and do yibum to the tzara. So loy Beis Hillel and Beis Shammai shita, you have a brother living with an Issachar. You have a brother living with his wife's sister. No, his brother's wife, excuse me. You have a brother living with his brother's wife, with Eishes Ach. That's what you have. Clearly, that's what you have. Mom, crazy machloikis, right? So we want to say over here, this opinion that said you can go ahead and get them off the hook is what would be according to Beis Shammai. Beis Shammai says no, you're permitted. The tsaras are permitted. If you do chalitza, it doesn't make a difference. The tsaras are permitted. So why do you have to do chalitza to the tsaris? Why don't you go ahead and do yibum to the tsaris? Says Gemara, Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri. This was the opinion of Yochanan ben Nuri. Remember, guys, this was the workaround to avoid any question of mamzeris and Kal Yisrael. Just give chalitza. So like Beis Shammai, it'll be a good chalitza. Like Beis Hillel, it'll be a waste of time because you don't need the chalitza. But you wouldn't have a shaila of mamzeris. Again, guys, one more time. What's considered to Beis Shammai a mitzvah of yibum, a Tony Beis Hillel is an issa of karis. An issa of karis creates mamzeris. Said Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri, let's avoid this whole thing. Just give chalitza to both. Give chalitza. Like Beis Shammai, chalitza is a valuable chalitza because she's seen to yibum. And like Beis Hillel, you don't need it. She's an eishes ach. She's free anyway. But now you'll want to have a shaila of mamzeris. Says the Amu said, "Boy, been attacking lehem at sarais. Let's go be attacking at sarais. She cholsa is one misyadmois that she get chalitza and not yibum." Says we said previously that they didn't get a chance to institute this. They go ahead, they were attacking it. So therefore, you're giving chalitza to the tsaris. Why? To avoid any issues whatsoever. So again, what's just to recap, we saw the shita of Shmuel. You got two sisters with two tsaris falling to one brother. Says Shmuel, if you go ahead and give chalitza to the two sisters, the other ones aren't free. However, if you give what to the tsaris, they are free. According to Rav Ashi, the easiest way out is there's no tsaris erva over here because the achos kaso is not strong enough to create the relationship of achos ishto. Again, two sisters, the two ervas will be mamas, the tsaris achos ishto, they'll be mamash and erva. Now we don't consider them an erva, therefore they're able to what? Go free. If they give them chalitza, they can free the tsara. However, the sister themselves, because of yes zika, it's so strong that what they would not. It's a shvacha chalitza because you need from each one. You're only getting one, and it's only one brother, but each one would need a zika. The zika of one, he's only taking off one when he does it. Therefore, it carries over to the tsara. You would need to go give the tsara one. Okay. Now, new Gemara. Okay, let's see the Shaila. Page 170. Page 170. A man dies, he leaves two wives. A man dies, and he leaves two wives. He, instead of giving chalitza to one, he goes again and gives a get. He gives a get to one, not chalitza. And he does maimer to the other one. So what he should have done is either miyabim one and get the other one off the hook, give chalitza to one and get the other one off the hook. He did neither. What did he do? He did maimer to one, meaning I'm going to marry you with yibum, and he gave a get to the other when he should have given chalitza. Which one is strong enough to pater? Which one is strong enough to pater? The get or the maimer? Good. You hear the shaila? Obviously, what are you going to have to do, guys? You're going to have to do chalitza. And by the maimer, in addition, you're going to have to give a get. Guys, volume 1462. The guy who gave the money, he's going to have to do two things. He's going to have to go ahead and give a chalitza, and he's going to go have to give a get for the money. The one who gives the get is going to give chalitza, but you can view the one who gave the get already as if he weakened it already. In other words, let's view zika as an electrical current. We did this once before. I think, guys, listen, it works very well over here. If you view zika as an electrical current, by going ahead and giving money, you're strengthening the current. You're strengthening it by giving money. By going ahead and giving a get, you're weakening it. Good? Now, you're going to have to give chalitza. Now you're going to have to stop the current. Question, which one takes precedent? Does the money take precedent because since you began the process, there's a stronger bond and there's a stronger chalitza? Because you're going to want to let the other one off the hook, right? Or do we say no? Do we say that since he began the process with the get, he already began to cut the current, give a chalitza, and that would cut the current? So that's the shaila at hand. That's the shaila.
How does it get to anything? A get works if you're married. You can break zika with a get.
No, exactly. But you can't break zika with a get. But as soon as he gives a get, he can't do yibum. In other words, it weakens his koyach of yibum. Let's view the current. The current is for the yibum. That's the mitzvah that you're supposed to do. As soon as you give a get, there's a din. Since you didn't build when you had a chance to build, you don't have a chance to build right away. So what that get did, Avi, it was the head. It ruined your zika. You can't do chalitza now.
So it's not the same as a woman if I gave a get to a woman on the street who I was never married to.
No. But this get doesn't do anything except impact your ability to do yibum. You can't do yibum anymore.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
Anymore. Yeah, that's a big cloud. Let's see the top Rashi, guys. Balas get ubalas maimer. Achiv shemesu, a man dies. Achiv shemesu, v'loy beis nashim, and he has two wives. The asa zeh maimer lizu, the get lizu. He gives maimer to one and get to the other. V'shuv asal yabim. This takes away the ability to do yibum. Why? The come lay below yiboneh. There's a lava you can't build. What does that mean? Kivin shehiskol legarish ezu may right may hen haguna lachlois the lift tzarasa. Since he began to divorce this one to end it, then what? Then do finish the job and pata, or do we say no? Do we say what? That it's a stronger bond of the zika of the. In other words, the chalitza to the one. When you gave money, you didn't weaken the chalitza, you strengthened it. You strengthened the bond. Now, really, he should be able to do yibum. Really, he should be able to do yibum, but he messed it up. He messed it up doing yibum by giving a get to the other one. So, in other words, the relationship between the money bag, he didn't really mess up. That's the protocol towards yibum. But he went and messed it up since he gave a get to the other one. Because they're both one house. These two are falling from one brother. By giving the get, you messed it up. Now, what do? Do you follow the mess up? Or no, yes, since you have a bond that hasn't been broken yet, the chalitza is stronger. You're only going to have one chalitza. Which one do you do? Do you do the stronger chalitza, or you go ahead and follow the process of the one that messed it up in the first place? That's the shaila at hand. So very lumdish shaila. Now, let's see, before we see the Gemara, let's see the next picture. On the bottom of 170. Took a picture? Yeah. Look at the bottom of 170. Umayda Rabbi Gamliel. Umayda Rabbi Gamliel. So what's the case? Again, same case. Two Yevamot falling for the one brother, right side. He does mimer to one, right? And then he goes ahead and gives a get to the other. That's our case, right? That's the same case. So the halacha is, Mahani get lifsol harishayna olav mishum lo yiboneh. As I said, the get asses the money bag. The get asses the money bag. Ula asev hakroivay shniya kibrishaynais, and it asses the kroivim of the second one like the first one. Any kroivim would be asa. So it goes ahead and makes asa the kroivim to each other. Next column, umayma acha get. Let's say instead of first giving mimer, he first gives a get. And then he goes ahead and gives the what. Then he gives what to the other one, mimer. Then you need a get for his mimer, and he's also gone bekroivos. So basically, what do you see? They're both equal. Whether he gave the mimer first or the get first, both are going to be asa. We're not going to say that what if he gave mimer first, he's still going to be miyabma. In the end, it's going to be asa. So regardless of the order. So too over here, in answer to your question, which is stronger? You have to give chalitza to both of them. Says the Gemara. Let's take from the top. You have two wives who fell. One he gives not sisters, just two stamazai, and he goes ahead and he gives a get to one and a mimer to the other. Which one do you do first to go ahead and give chalitza? In other words, no question you can't do yibum. Which one do you do chalitza to pata the other one? Do we say hager adif mishum the aslaba, since that began to break the bond? The chalitza idilma balas maima adif mishum the krayv lebia, because she's closer to bia, and therefore the chalitza will be stronger. Amar Vashi Tashma. Umoida Reb Gamliel. Reb Gamliel, we're going to see Bez Hashem, is Moida. Sheyesh get acha maima, umaima acha get. That if you give one, it works. Give one the other words. I get adif leilahani maimer. Guys, if get is adif, it should be like you're out the door already. Guys, watch. Two women fall. He gives get to one. How can he be maimer to the other? The get began the process. It's already that this is a shtickle eishasach already. In other words, right? As soon as you can't be mekayim the mitzvah, she's an eishasach. I went ahead, I gave it a get. How can I go ahead and give maimer to the other one? L'chayra, I already said that the other one's out of the ballpark by giving a get to this one. But we say no. We said you still have to go ahead and give her a get on the mimer. You still have to give a get on the mimer. So, I get adif leilahani mimer abasrei. Mi mimer adif leilahani get abasrei. Either one, the last one should not be counted. Everybody have to say lashma mina ki adadi. That they're both equal. So therefore, since they're both equal, I think you have to give chalitza to both of them. Let's see Rashi, guys. Ki adadininu, mamish parallel to where we're holding. Ki adadininu. V'tivshit ba'ayin, she'achas poitach aveirasa, v'yichlois la'ezes she'yirtze, she'chilatza shteyem gerua. And be poishit abaya, that the chalitza of one of them, right? The chalitza of one of them, whichever one he wants, could pater the other. You don't give chalitza to both. Whichever one he wants, he paters the other. Okay, weiter. Shema Mina, you have a good riot. New Gemara. Okay, let's see, page 171. You have the picture 171? Huh? 171. Two Yevamis, three brothers, two Yevamis sisters fall in front of one brother, right? The outside brother dies, and now you have only brother can do Yibam because the other brother it's Achas Zukukaso. Right? Sheni cannot do Yibam to Rishayna because it's Achas Zukukaso. So, but Shlishi could. Now Sheni dies, and they're both falling in front of Shlishi. Now you have Achas Zukukaso. Now, fellas, at point 149.2. Could Shlishi have married Rishayna? Guys, this is the key. At 149.2, could Shlishi have married Rishayna? Yes, right? Yes, there's no problem. When does it become Asa? Only after Sheni dies. And then you have Achas Ukukaso, right? Only then. So now, continuing down 149.4, what's the halacha? It gives chalitza to the first one. That permits it to the shuk. He gives chalitza to the second one. It permits it to the shuk. That would be, again, he has no choice. Even though at one point Rishayna was permitted before Shniya popped up in the scene, nonetheless, he matters both. 199.4. Amra Apuna Amarav. Mesa Rishayna, if the first one died, he'd be mutter to go ahead and marry the second one. And Rabbi Yochanan says it's us in the second one. And you don't have to tell me that what, if the second one dies, that he's mutter in the first one. Okay, what's the chiddush, guys? The second one never had a zman where she was mutter because when her husband died, she was achas sukukaso because her sister had fallen to Yibam previously. Guys, what's happening is the following. Look at my fingers, breaking it down. You have two sisters falling to one brother, but the sisters are not falling simultaneously. If this sister comes on the scene, then she's permitted. There's no problem. However, as soon as this one comes, now this creates the Nisra over here, so what happens if the first one dies? So the second one, clearly, since there was never a Zman where she was permitted, she's out, according to Rav Yochanan. According to Rav Huna, she's still in. But everyone's Maida, this one that was in, and then became out, and then becomes in again, is permitted. She's in because there's no Zika yet. She's out because of Achasuka. So she's back in again because of why? Because of the Zika's out of the way. Let's see the Gemara. Amrav Huna, Amarav. You got two sisters, Yevamot. So two sisters are falling in front of Levi, but they're falling at different times. Now he could have married the first one. Cholas l'rishayna hutra. If he goes ahead now, he goes ahead. She's right. She's gone. Her alone is gone. Cholas l'shniya hutra. Now again, he had to take off the zika of both. They're falling from two different people. Mesa rishayna. If the first one who was mutter once upon a time dies, mutter b'shniya. She's mutter what in the second one, even though the second one was always achas kukaso. Nonetheless, right now, there's only one zika, and you can go ahead and remove it. You can even do yibum. Mesa shniya shemata rishayna. Because number one was in the ballpark, then out of the ball, but back in the ballpark. Rabbi Yochanan says no. Mesa shniya muta b'rishayna. If the second one dies, then the rishayna is permitted. Aval mesa rishayna, if the first one's permitted, asa b'shniya. You'd be asa b'shniya because the shniya, when she came on the scene, she was asa. My timer, shekol yevama she'enani koyer b'shas nafila yevama yavaleha. Any Yevamot at the time of Nefila. Again, Nefila is when the death of the brother takes place. What's the status of that time? So, guys, watch. At this time, again, at this time they're good, yeah. At this time they're no good. Now, even if this one dies, and you have this and this, nonetheless, it's not good. Why? Because since when they fell at this time, you couldn't marry this one because the achas kuka so. Even though later on it's not a choskuka so, she's still out. That's Rabbi Yochanan. Conversely, however, this one is in the ballpark like Rabbi Yochanan, because at the time she fell, you could have been Makai in the mitzvah of Yiba. It's only after she showed up you can't. So this one's the case of Hutra, the Asra, the Chazal Heteri Rishayna. It's a beautiful Gemara. It's sensible. It all makes sense. Okay. The Rav, Leslie Haisvara, guys, what did Rav say? Rav said, regardless, you can marry either one. Even if the first one dies, you can marry the second one. Doesn't Rav hold that Svara? Right? So you see clearly he agrees with it. So question, how can he marry the Shnia if the Rishona dies? The Shnia, when she fell, she wasn't Mutta. When she fell, there was a Rishona. When she fell, there was an Achas Kusukukasai there. Says the Gemara, no. That's only when it's an Issa Achas Isha Daraisa. Page 172. Have it? What? Oh, okay, 2 seconds. I'll just stop it. Okay, 172. You have 3 brothers and 2 sisters. 2 of the brothers, Reuven's married to Machla, Shimon's married to Noya, Levi's married to a Nachris. Reuven dies, right? Reuven dies. The only person who could do Yibam Misvat is Levi, because Shimon, Machla is Achais Sekukasai, right? You can't do that. And then Reuven dies. And then Noah dies. So falling in front of Shimon is who? Is his wife's sister. Right? His wife was Noah, and now falling is Machla. In this case, since at the time, guys, Machla and Noah, guys, 150.2. I don't know why we need Levi there. Why do we need Levi there? I don't know. Okay, anyway. Shimon, guys, at 150.2, could Shimon have gone ahead and do anything to Machla? Obviously not. It's Achas Ishtay. That's the Ichi of the Raisa. It's not Achas Kukasai. He's married to Noah, who's the sister of Machla. That's Achas Ishtay. In that case, we don't say when Noah dies and now she's available, then we don't say that then we say since she wasn't there at the time of Nefila, you could do it later on. But let's say it was just Achos Kukaso, then we would say it. The difference between the Issa Deraisa and Issa Derabanan. Rabbi Yochanan says, Afilu Issa Derabanan, we don't say it. So when Shnia fell, and in front of Rishain, even though she's out of the way now, still, since B'shas Nefila she wasn't seen, she's out. Says Rav, no. If the Issa was Achas Kukaso, even though now you couldn't see it, right then, but over here you could see it, then she's in. Conversely, if there was Achas Ishto, that's when Rav says it. Let's see it inside. Says the Gemara, and Rav doesn't hold with the Svara. Vama Rav, Kol Isha Sheinani Korba B'Shas Nefila Yevama Yavai Aloha Harihika Eish is actually Sheish Leibanim Basura. Doesn't matter. Hani Mili Heichid the Koi Ba'apa Be'Issa Achas Isha. That's Dafka where she's in front of him with the Isra of Achas Isha Deraisa, like we just saw on page 172. Aval Hocha Zika Derabanan the 2 sisters, right, from Reuven and Shimon that fell in front of Levi, the Issa is Achas Kukaso. So despite the fact when the second wife fell, the first one was still in the world, and you couldn't even come Yibam. Okay.
he says on the side, he explains, I think, why. I don't understand it, but he seems to explain why Levi's there, because there's a Zika to Levi.
Okay, so
By 150.2, he writes on the side, may high be salagami shizakuka Levi. Lo adochi machla.
Mesurim mishas nefilas machla nesal shem mishum achres ishtei v'loy itcha machla mehai beis legamish. So in other words, question. So why is Levi there? I do understand it. Very good, thank you. I do understand it. If there was not another brother there, as soon as Reuven dies and no other brother, Machla should go free. Why would Machla still have to be around? Machla is the sister of Noah, guys, right? If Shimon can't marry Machla and there's no one else in town, that's it. She's finished. The only that keeps her in town is Levi. The only thing that keeps her in town is Levi. Got it? Okay, very good. Okay, let's finish up. Now, guys, what does Rabbi Yochanan say? Guys, what's Rabbi Yochanan's din? What's Rabbi Yochanan's din? His din is that what? If it's Zika de Rabbanon, and one is falling, then the second one would not be permitted. The first one will be permitted, but the second one not, even though it's a Zika de Rabbanon. Rabbi Yochanan, Abo Achin, Beis Mehem Nesuin Beis Achayos. 4 brothers married to 2 sisters. Umeisan Nesuin Beis Achayos. Mamash Mishnah. So therefore now Reuven and Shimon are dead. They're falling in front of Levi and Yehuda, the 2 sisters. If not for Zika, each one would marry one or the other. Because of Zika, you have an Isser Achaz Kukaso. Hari Elu Chotzav and Misyamois. They both do Chalitza. Va'amai Leiki Chad Minayim Lichlis Lo Lishniya. Why don't just one do Chalitza to the second one? V'hatavi Rishayna Lagabe Idach Ki Yevama Shehutra V'Nesra V'Chazra V'Hutra Tachsal Atayar Rishayn. In other words, it should be pretty much a very, very open and shut case. Page 173. Page 173. If you have 4 brothers, 2 are married to 2 sisters, right? The first brother dies. The Rishayna is falling in front of 2 brothers, right? At this point in time, could they marry the Rishayna? Yeah. Absolutely, yes. Then the second one dies, and now she becomes Asaras Achas Kukaso. So why don't you just have one give the Shniya Chalitza, she's out of the way, and then the Rishayna is permitted. Why? Because she had been Mutta, Asa, and Mutta. So why don't we say that? So Rabbi Yochanan gives a teretz. What's Rabbi Yochanan's teretz? I'm Rabbi Yochanan. Achayas eni yodei mishanan. I don't know who went ahead and learned that Mishnah. I don't know who learned that Mishnah. It says Rabbi Yochanan Einach Inami, the Mishnah is out. And they're going to spend tomorrow's daf, at least half of tomorrow's daf, explaining why Rabbi Yochanan is forced to say the Mishnah is out rather than come up with other terutzim. Thank you for listening. Have a great